All right. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. It's so nice to see so many of you here. Some of you I can see because you've turned on your video. So if you are here and really here, then please turn on your video so we can at least pretend that we are meeting each other in person. So with these card talks, maybe this is your first time, maybe it's not. Shortly introduce CARP, and it's a you could say a forum or a place that exists in many different nations, and where we discuss principles and values and ways you can grow. And so, with that, I also hope that tonight that we can all grow a little bit from maybe each other, but certainly from our speaker for tonight. But before we get into the character development, we are going to put some smiles on your face and loosen up a little bit. So we would like to start with some icebreakers. So the first question is, how are you today? I am amazing today. Thanks for asking. I am so happy. I feel great and fine. All right. So most people are just fine today. A lot of people feel great, and some are grateful I asked, and I'm glad you are amazing. One person is happy. Well, that's good for you. All right, next question. Next question is as follows. What's your favorite season? Spring, summer, autumn, or winter? All right. A lot of people like summer. That's very nice. And one person likes the winter. Well, lucky you. It's coming. It's coming. This is what's coming now. And some people are enjoying the autumn at the moment. Very good. So, most people like summer, and then second place is spring and autumn, and last place is winter. Not so many Swedish people here. That's why. Because you don't live in Sweden unless you love the winter. Oh, next question is, our lecturer tonight, Hod Ben Zvi, is from Israel. What do you know about Israel? I know everything. That our lecturer, Hod Ben Zvi, is from there. I really want to go so that I can meet Uncle Hod. I am pretty sure hummus is from there. All right, so it seems like people don't know so much about Israel, because most people answered that our lecturer Hod Ben Zvi is from there, which is true. But I hope you know a little bit more about Israel, maybe a little bit tonight when our speaker introduces himself. So, and the last question is, when was the last time Israel had snow? Last January. They don't know what snow is. The year was 1785, and they have summer all year. Yes, maybe this shows you how much I know about Israel based on these questions, right? Very good. And so the answer are as follow. So most people think that Israel, they don't know what snow is, and then some people know Israel because actually last January, and a few people wrote they have summer all year, and the year was 1785, which I'm sure they had snow that year. I'm just going on a limb here because certain places in Israel do have snow all year round. Every year, not all year round. All right, good. I feel like we could loosen up a little bit. We have set a good foundation for tonight. So with that, I would like to show you the schedule for tonight. So tonight, we've had MC welcoming, we've had icebreakers. We're gonna watch soon a short video. Then we'll have our main talk by Uncle Hod Ben Zvi. and we'll have the opportunity to ask questions to Uncle Hod. Then we'll have a short sharing and discussion, and then that we will finish there. We have someone in here that's called question and comments. So if you have any questions or comments for Uncle Hod, please write to question and comments. You'll find questions and comments in the top of the chat. So we will collect your questions there. All right, so with that, we would like to show you the video for today. In a minute. So it's related a little bit to our general carp topics, and you'll see by the end why it's a very appropriate video. So,
hi. What do you do when you're feeling angry or upset with another person? Do you go quiet and try to avoid an argument? Do you huff, puff, slam doors, shout or insult others? Do you apologise to make peace even if you're not in the wrong? Or do you speak calmly and try to find a compromise? Everyone is different, and what we usually do may not always work. So one thing that can be really helpful with managing our relationships with friends and family is to work out what our conflict style is. I like to remember the different conflict styles as animals. So let's have a look and see which style we can relate to. Here's the accommodating bear. This is cooperating to a high degree, sometimes at the expense of your own goals and objectives. The accommodating bear might say, I don't care that much, have it your way, or I give in. This conflict style can be effective when the other party is the expert or has a better solution, or if you really want to maintain a future relationship. However, if this happens too often, you may find yourself feeling resentful that you are unable to give your opinion or be heard. The avoiding turtle. This is when you simply avoid the issue. The avoiding turtle may say, I'd just rather not deal with this right now. Avoiding would be positive for dangerous situations. It allows you to step back and cool down, and not so positive if you don't give your opinion or speak up when it's something that really matters to you. Avoiding is not a good long-term strategy. You aren't helping the other party reach their goals, and you aren't assertively pursuing your own. Next, the collaborating owl. This is where you pair up with the other party to achieve both of your goals, breaking free of the win-lose idea and seeking the win-win. The collaborating owl may say, 2 heads are better than 1. This can mean reframing the challenge and creating a space for everybody's ideas. The downside is that it requires a high degree of trust, time and effort from everyone involved to ensure that everyone is happy enough. Here's the competing shark. This is the win-lose approach. The competing shark may say, I take charge, and act in a very assertive way to achieve your goals. This approach may be helpful when you need quick, decisive action, but can be unhelpful in other situations as sharks aren't too fussed about relationships. So being a shark too often may lead to losing friends. Lastly is the compromising fox. This is the lose-lose scenario where neither party really achieves what they want. The competing fox may say, let's meet halfway, or let's split the difference. This may be appropriate for scenarios where you need a temporary solution or where both sides have equally important goals. A negative is that it can be time-consuming if both parties do not want to give something up. So, which conflict style do you most relate to? Do you recognise yourself in any of them? What about your friends and family? What are their go-to conflict styles? It's really important to remember that no one style is necessarily better than the other. As we saw, there's pros and cons to each one. No one style is fixed either. So next time you're in a conflict, how about practicing different approaches to see if you can get a better outcome?
all right, interesting. It was also interesting looking at all of you, and I think when your animal came out, people were nodding a little bit more, like, yeah, that makes sense. I found myself nodding at the owl, but I feel like it can many times be fox as well as a mix between a hybrid. So very interesting. So I think with that was a very good introduction to just, I mean, in many ways to see ourselves in maybe a simplified way of how we approach certain things. We will now have the main topic for tonight. And actually, our speaker for tonight is Hod Ben Zvi, or Uncle Hod, as I like to call him. Uncle Hod is actually working in the Middle East. He lives in Israel, hence all the questions about Israel. And he has initiated quite a few programs to really try to bridge gaps between different people. And so that's why we feel it is very, very appropriate for Uncle Hod to speak to us tonight. So please give a warm applause for Uncle Hod.
Good evening. Thank you, Peter, for the very kind introduction. I feel very comfortable here. Thank you for having me. I hope I can contribute a little bit to the topic. And let me begin with refuting the idea that Israel has no snow. We do have snow, but maybe every 3 years, light snow which melts quite quickly. Sometimes it stays longer, but if we really want to have snow, we have to go where Peter lives, right? Okay. I'd like to share with you a little bit about bridging the divides in our current society. Let me just share screen and let me know if you can see it. Yeah, is that okay? Let me see if I can see. Hold on a moment. Okay. So yeah, before I begin sharing some points and some thoughts, I'd like to show you a short video from a program we started back in 2015, which brought together Palestinian and Israeli kids together to play soccer in Italy. So have a look at this short video. Make it a little less noisy.
Un calcio per la pace e la squadra l'abbiamo chiamata Peace Dreamers. Sono 7 bambini arabo-israeliani, 7 bambini ebreo-israeliani che non si conoscevano. Li abbiamo accolti attraverso una scelta che è stata fatta nel loro paese dai sindaci delle località dalle quali provengono, con il patrocinio del Ministero dell'Educazione, e li abbiamo invitati in Italia, a Torino, per una serie di iniziative sportive con tutte le realtà giovanili locali, perché Torino è un luogo di pace, perché Torino è un luogo che può aiutarli ad integrarsi meglio grazie alla sua storia lavorativa, alla sua storia interreligiosa e alla sua storia sportiva.
Oggi abbiamo voluto organizzare questa giornata con i nostri bambini del 2005, è una selezione, tra virgolette, di bambini palestinesi israeliani, perché lo sport ha dimostrato tante volte di essere integrazione, passione comune, e non c'è cosa migliore che farlo attraverso il gioco di squadra, dove tutti devono correre uno per l'altro verso un obiettivo comune, ed è un po' il messaggio che vogliamo dare quest'oggi, perché troppe volte abbiamo visto in questo periodo persone correre da soli, e invece per avere un mondo migliore bisogna correre tutti insieme verso un obiettivo comune.
È la giornata mondiale della lotta contro ogni forma di discriminazione, giornata che viene celebrata in tutto il mondo perché l'UNESCO così chiede, e difatti i bambini riceveranno da parte del Centro UNESCO di Torino questo segnalibro che indica loro sia la giornata sia il senso della giornata stessa. Mettiamoci insieme a lavorare perché il mondo sia davvero per tutti e di tutti.
So I hope you enjoy this video. Let's see if I can see the video panel. Okay. So this program started with joint initiative with a friend from San Marino. We met together in the city of Torino, and then the program developed there. We brought the children, and we're hosted by Juventus. I hope you understood a bit of Italian there. I think I read the subtitles. But maybe at the end of my short presentation, I'll go back to it and show you the most recent program we had, again in San Marino. There'll be some photos at the end of the short presentation. So let's jump into it and talk a little bit about bridging the divide. And our first assumption here is that harmony is what we all desire. We always feel happy when we are in a very good, harmonious environment, harmonious between people and nature. And so this is something we all crave to. However, so also often we find ourselves in a very different situation where there's so many different kind of conflicts around us, which pains our heart, makes us uneasy, makes us sometimes pessimistic about the future. And so we are really striving to, as we mentioned, to bridge the different kind of divides. So let's a little bit look into what are the kinds of divides or the kind of conflicts that we find around ourselves, even though we'll maybe talk about a few, but it's our hope is to go into how to resolve them, how to solve those conflicts, or how to bring people from conflicting sides together. But let's look at what is the state of affairs within the one personality or one person. So we find often that there is a certain divide within myself or conflict. We suffer from stress. Sometimes we feel anger, self-hatred, and we sometimes fall into addiction. So these are all descriptions of something that is within myself and disrupting our harmony. When you take that a step further into the family or community, we find marital tension, we find family strife, and we find sometimes dispute even with our friends or neighbors. And it can expand into the environment where we live in, school or work. And when that is taking even a larger form, we can begin with legal disputes and move to ethnic tensions between groups of people, eventually experiencing something like the abuse of power and even war, which is the most dreadful result of the eruption of those conflicts or their continuous growth. So I think in the short video we saw in the beginning, the lady was sharing about the different ways we or methods we deal with conflicts, but we want to look a little bit into the root. What is the root cause of the conflict? Although it's a wide topic and we probably need to spend more time to delve into it, but at least we want to put some things on the table that will be easy for us to get the bigger picture. So we can define one of the key elements of what causes conflicts is the breakdown of interaction. If you look from a medical point of view, if we have any breakdown of the flow of our blood from the heart to the veins or to the rest of the body, then we suffer. There is something wrong in our body. So the breakdown of interaction can be within ourselves, but also within our relationship with the people around us, or even with the nature around. So this is one aspect of the cause of conflict. Another aspect is, and we'll deal with it a bit more in detail, it's the ignorance of the whole purpose. We tend to see things from a more narrow point of view, and in doing so, actually that leads eventually to conflict, because if other people also look at things from a narrow point of view and not the whole purpose, it's easier to get into a conflicting situation. And finally, there is also a certain accumulation of conflict. There's something we're very familiar in our region here in the Middle East, that when people are in conflict, they even don't remember what was the reasons they got into a conflict, but they remember the last grievances they felt because someone has done to them. And so it's a kind of perpetuating thing. You get into a long-term conflict, which you don't even remember how it began. So this is another aspect that it would be good for us to pay attention to. Simply speaking, the principle of harmony or harmonious interaction rests upon the understanding that we always need to see an interaction between two positions. One is a subject role and one an object role. And these, by the way, positions can alternate. You can be at some point the subject role, at some time you can be the object role. But what is important is that there's a healthy giving and receiving action between them. And for that, we need some common goal. We interact with people because we have a common goal. Tonight, we gather together, we have a common interest in a topic. So we are having a give and take now. I'm sharing, and later on you ask question, you'll be in a subject position and I'll respond, etc. So this is very important to understand, that the principle of harmony is not just a floating ideal. It rests upon the solid understanding that a healthy relationship of giving and receiving is the basis of our good relationship. That's what happened when the interaction is broken. As we mentioned before, it can be inside my body, even unhealthy things happen when interaction is broken. And of course, within people, if we misunderstand each other, we cannot communicate properly with one another, then that leads to a conflict. Now, this is probably one of the key points that we need to share tonight, and it deals with two kinds of purposes that all of us share. All of us share our individual purpose. We want to be happy, we want to maintain ourselves, our health, we want to have a shelter and food and good relationship with others. So we have an individual purpose that we pursue. However, in our inner self, in the more deeper level, we have even a more important goal that we pursue in our life, and that is relates to the whole purpose, to something that is beyond me, greater than me. It can be my family, can be my community, my neighborhood, it can be my society, and even beyond, to the nation or even the world. So these two purposes both exist in myself, and the relationship between these two purposes is very critical to whether we are leading our life towards a life of conflict or to a life of harmony. So let's look at what happens when this set of two purposes are in order or not in order. On the right-hand side, we see that when the individual purpose comes first or on the top, and only secondary, the whole purpose is being attended to, we're actually moving in the direction of living a selfish type of life. On the other hand, when we are able to pursue the whole purpose before our individual purpose, that's an unselfish act that will lead to prosperity and to harmony. So what we put first, our self-purpose or the whole purpose, is quite critical, but all too often ignored in the society that we live. And in fact, I believe, and you can correct me, or if you have different ideas, we can hear when we share. But I feel in the recent era, there is a very strong emphasis on individualism. While individualism is good to develop the individual purpose, if we ignore the significant priority of the whole purpose, eventually it leads us astray. So this is also important for us to remember. So we can understand from that that the root cause of conflict is in myself. I can go to the direction of selfishness or unselfishness by setting the right priorities of the whole purpose and the individual purpose. So let's look at what drives us to live for the higher purpose. We call it living for the sake of others. So that's expression of true love that comes, springing from our heart. It's unconditional, and we give, and we want to give more, and we forget that we have given, and we still want to give even more. And also the tendency to forgive, not to hold on when there is a certain things that did not go right. On the other hand, if we live prioritizing our individual goals, we can slide into what we call living for oneself. And so, although some people say that love is love, if we look a little deeper, we can see that there's a difference in the quality of love when it's centered on us or centered on others. And so expression of false love, what we call, is an indication that our heart has not fully matured. I'll give you a simple example. I don't see all of you on the screen here, but I'm sure we have met with young toddlers, right? Have you ever tried to give one a candy? Do they reach to it with their hand? Right? And what happens if you give another candy? They reach with both hands. So they're constantly thinking of whom? Of themselves, right? They want to get more and more the more you give. Do we see that as a very selfish and it's something that angers us? Most probably not. We see it as something cute, right? Because we see that in the level of their development, they still see themselves at the center. And so they cannot think at that moment about somebody else. But if you see them just in a year or two later, when they have a younger sibling, something you see very beautiful, they may share the other candy with their younger brother or sister, which means that gradually, when their heart develops, they begin to recognize the beauty and the love that derives from looking after others or loving others. So in a way, we can look at selfishness, not in just a critical way, but understanding that it's underdeveloped. So if we get the right nourishment, the right guidance, we're able to develop a more caring and loving heart for others. And so we don't fall into the trap of conditional giving. We give only when we know for sure that we will receive, and we calculate. That these are signs of immaturity. And also, along with that comes this idea of holding grudges. In other words, we're not freeing ourselves. So we are in a crossroad, right? It's up to us. Are we going to be part of the problem or part of the solution? Are we going to resolve conflict that we encounter, or are we just going to repeat it and get into a vicious cycle of repeating the conflict or paining others? So one of the beautiful quotes comes from Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We never get rid of an enemy by meeting hate with hate. We get rid of an enemy by getting rid of enmity." This is a critical point, and I'd like to add another one from the founders of the CARP movement that you've been introduced to. And they mentioned that any successful resolution of this crisis, means these various kinds of conflicts, must be based on an effort to build a unified world through a movement of true love. So true love sounds good, right? So you remember in this context, when we talk about true love, it refers to this naturally springing unselfish love, centering on others, the desire to give and to give again. So what are the ways to resolve conflict? I think that fundamentally, we have to deal with something that we can call restoration, or putting back the proper order. So if we're in a state of conflict, then to restore it, we want to come back to a state of harmony. And that is a bit different than the common notion that in a conflict, I have to win means bring the other one to submission, where here we're talking that the actual bridging the gap is restoring the ideal state of harmony between the two, not one overpowering the other. So what are the conditions for this kind of restoration, restitution? Is efforts to reverse the process. It goes at the other direction where we lost the harmony in order to create the harmony or recreate the harmony that was lost. So often it requires some inner change, like apology, a way for us to recognize that we have offended the other or hurt him or her in some way. And if necessary, or if that's the case, paying some damages. And we have to be aware that if this is not done in the proper way, there could be even greater conditions needed in order to create a restitution. If we have not really been sincere in our effort to restore our harmony, then that can lead us to even a greater kind of payment to come back to the original situation. So once again, often when we're in conflict, we cannot see so much our part, but we see what the other person who offended us have caused us. So a very good practice would be to understand that both sides are responsible to make the effort. It works together. Like the original harmony, also the process of overcoming conflict requires an effort from both sides. And as you probably have experienced, assigning blame is not very helpful. It usually leads to the continuation of the conflict and we remain divided. So reconciliation is what we want, restoring harmony and renewal. So forgiveness, and also not only forgive others, but ready to receive forgiveness ourselves. And also make a determination to change. Often if we only say we're sorry, but we're not really showing any determination to change, then the conflict is not really resolved. So the other side, the object partner, the subject partner wants to see a resolution to change, a real change. So for us, for ourselves, when we can overcome the conflict, we can come to the point of reconciliation. It actually liberates us. We become free. And the anger, the hatred, the resentment we feel is being released. It's gone. So this is something very important because as in the words of Martin Luther King, you don't really get rid of the problem by defeating the other or winning over him by power or by clever act. The actual winning is when we become liberated, because we come to a true point of reconciliation, and then we can restore the relationship to the harmony that was there before. So that opens the way for us to love. And this very nice image you see together, very famous figures, probably you identify. On the left, Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop, and the clerk from South Africa, and Mandela. And they have overcome an incredible, difficult period. The apartheid in South Africa, and a lot of very sad stories from a period of division between the people inside South Africa, which were resolved by the harmony between the two leaders, in this case, de Klerk and Mandela. So it's an historical example of people who were in an enemy position, but were able to overcome that. And as you see in that image, also have some warm and close relationship. So these are just few pointers about bridging the divide. And I'd like to share a few images of our most recent program that we've done with Jewish and Arab children, that we brought them over to Italy and San Marino. And I think the picture speaks for themselves. I just run them through, and maybe at the end you can tell me if you could catch something from those images. One thing I'm quite sure, you will not be able to tell through the photos who are the Arab and who are the Jewish children. So this was our first meeting with the parents and the children, orientation, and before we set out to the project. It was last August. And here we are at the airport, just ready to fly and arriving to San Marino. I'll go very fast. And this is at the amusement park together. And arriving safely home. So, yeah, I hope you can catch something from this kind of rapid photo show. We had a wonderful project, and the children bonded with each other very, very fast. And they really, as soon as the ball was tossed in the air, by the time it dropped to the ground, they're already bonding with each other and playing joyfully, and all the, you know, the divides that is in the topics that we talk about disappeared. I think that goes to show that if we set the right kind of environment, the right kind of heart, then we can reach bridging the divide. Maybe to summarize this point, I would say that what is this environment? We call it the parental environment. When we have the feeling of an embracing parents, a mother and a father, we know that even children that are in conflict are able to find solace, are able to calm down, and then the parents can bring them together and let them reconcile with one another. So this is something that really is missing so much, right, in the world today. We often talk about the political divide. Is it right and left? And we talk about different economical systems, etc. While all those things have a certain role to play, we often forget that the most fundamental thing in our life is craving to experience true love. And that's why bridging the divide is centered upon the idea that we create a parental environment in which it is easier for the children to come together. And the same goes for the great wider world. We have forgotten the very basic rules of harmony, and that's why it seems that the big conflicts around the world are unsolvable. They're very difficult to deal with, because we forget the fundamental way in which we should behave as individuals, as families, communities, and societies. So I hope that was just a kind of a taste, a very simple sharing with you. I hope it was helpful in some way. And with this, I'd like to end my short presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Uncle Hod. Can we give a round of applause? And I thank those who have their videos on so we can see you applaud. It's very nice. We have a very short time for Q&A now, and we have quite a lot of questions. So we'd ask you to keep short to the questions so we can cover as much ground as possible. We're going for quantity tonight. All right, first question is, when there is a conflict in which I myself am not involved, but both conflicting parties are close to me. What is the best way to let someone understand he or she is behaving not well, and at the same time comfort them and make more harmony?
So a quick reply would be that we need to look at the goal. I think the goal is reconciliation. Their goal is harmony. And I think often when we see the goal in the other changing, we get stuck. So we need to look together, and rather than looking at each other, we're staying side by side and looking at the goal. The goal itself is harmony. So it's easier for us to overcome the differences between us when we look at the overall goal that we want to reach, in this case, restoring harmony.
Excellent. That was a very short answer for a very complex question, I would say. Next question is, what should I do if I need to sacrifice the purpose of the whole to achieve my individual purpose?
Well, if we want to be a tyrant, that's the way to go. In other words, what differentiates us, when I sacrifice myself, even my family and community, for the greater purpose, maybe the community or the nation or the world, then I become a saintly type of person. When I do the opposite, when I sacrifice the nation, the community, the family for my own purpose, then I become more like a dictator, a tyrant, right? So these are the two avenues we can go, and it is up to us what we choose.
Good. Sounds like there's a clear better one there out of the two. All right. So next question is, when someone has decided to be resentful and angry toward me, my country, or to my group, what kind of mindset would you advise? A quite difficult and actual question, maybe.
It is very challenging because it touches the deep emotions within ourselves. None of us want to be hated or misunderstood. And so when we meet such a situation, I think that it really requires our connecting to our source. In this case, if you know God, if you're connected to God, then that's the first thing you go to. If you're not a believer, you can actually go deep into your conscience as a conscientious person also. If we connect there, we find the resources that helps us. It cannot be found in waiting for change from the other. So that's where you can call it the vertical line. Go up vertical if you believe in God, or you can go deep to connect to your conscience. We need to find our inner point of balance, and from there we can deal with it. It's not something that we can do just based on the relationship that are outwardly, but inwardly we have to go through that process of change, which enable us to be forgiving and accommodate the needs of the others.
Good, thank you. I'll jump to the next question here. So, what are real life examples of, quote, the whole purpose?
Well, we can start with a very small level, as we mentioned before, in the family. If I get up early in the morning and I clean the house, I'm making everybody happy. Everybody lives there. So I do that first. And maybe, of course, I need to take shower to prepare myself. But the small things are very important. And then this can go on also in school or in the workplace where we are. We try to serve the others before we serve ourselves. Even when, I'm sure all of you experience your mother's love, right? And most often the mother first feeds the child before she feeds herself, right? So this is an example of training ourselves to always put the other first of ourselves. It's a growing process. Does not happen automatically. We do need education for that and good role models. If you have good role models, it helps a lot to follow in their footsteps and to train ourselves. And we have to be conscious. We do not automatically become unselfish people. We begin as we mentioned, from childhood, we tend to be more selfish, and because we need to observe love into ourselves. But as we grow, the expectation, and we start gradually to give out and to give to others. So this is a maturing process. So that, I think, maybe answering some part of that question.
Yeah, so the real life experience is basically when you serve others before yourself. Those are
That's
excellent. I think we all can practice this, right? I think that's a good answer. Uncle Hod, what is the biggest conflict that you have helped solve?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Personal.
Yeah, it's brings me back to a time of actually a time of war, and we had a very serious situation between two communities, in this case, Jewish and Arab community, and I wouldn't like to say that I helped to resolve it, but let's say more humbly that I participated, among others, in that effort. We set a kind of a prayer time for people from different religions. And we really felt that after that, while quite serious conflict erupted in society, we set 40-day condition that, by saying condition, I mean setting a time, or setting a time period in which we gather together people from different religion. In this case, we're Jews and Muslim and Christians, and we gathered for 40 days and prayed. And after that, we saw that the conflict gradually, wasn't like a miracle, but gradually subsided. So that stays in my memory as such kind of experience. Again, I cannot say that I resolved it, but I was maybe one of those who initiated and took part in that process.
That's very beautiful. So we have our last question here. How do I let go of grudges?
Maybe one pointer that I can leave you with, and we can ponder and think about it. Our grudges are, I'll say it in a little bit humoristic sense, are very dear to us, right? We hold on to them very dearly. But often if we hear someone that tells us about a bigger or more challenging experience that we have gone through, then we come into more perspective. And so that helps us to realize that if that person was able to overcome their difficulties, then also I can also overcome my difficulties. And ultimately, if we learn and study even about the history of our Creator, God, probably he had most grudges because he's looking at the present reality of this world, or even the past very sad history of so many conflicts and wars, and certainly as an overall parental figure, as a heavenly parent, he must have felt those grudges, because we as human beings, as his sons and daughters, were not able to really forge a world of harmony, of cooperation, and so on. So even that is the case, every day we have the sunshine, every day we have air and water and food to eat. So that means that even our Creator is seeing and having these grudges because we do not behave properly. He still showers us with so much love and so much care. So if we reflect upon that, I think that helps us to overcome our grudges, which are most probably on a much smaller scale. So this is the kind of suggestion, is to look either to people, role models that have gone through bigger tests in their life and overcame, or even all the way to our heavenly parent and inheriting his kind of unconditional parental love. That may help us to overcome our grudges.
Thank you so much, Uncle Hod. Can we give a round of applause? I don't think we've ever had a speaker cover so many questions and so well, actually. They're just very well formulated. Whenever I answer questions, I always add my feelings to it, but you were very factual and very good. So we really appreciate that, as we don't have so much time with you. So we will now have the opportunity to discuss a little bit, because we've heard a lot in a very short time. So to digest this, we will now have some discussion questions. And if you can see them in the chat, and on the screen. So, how was the talk for you? What stood out for you the most? Which animal from the first video do you feel you relate most? Accommodating bear, avoiding turtle, collaborating owl, competing shark, or compromising fox? And last question is, what kind of conflicting situations are you going through in your everyday life? What can you do to avoid these situations from happening again? Very good. So we will now open some breakout rooms, and we will be discussing these questions. So it's a very short time, so make sure to let everyone speak, and choose your favorite question. Start with that, and then move forward to the next one. All right, welcome back, welcome back. Sometimes I say this is my favorite part of meetings like this, because when people come back from the groups, all of the videos are on. And I'm like, wow, amazing. I get to see everyone. How great is that? It's almost as if you didn't know how it worked before the meetings, you know? Somehow magically they're all on. So I hope you had good conversations in your team. We did, I think, my group.